a combination of necessity and nature. So I started university right when the tuition fees started coming in. And so I just simply didn't have the cash to survive university without generating money from a salary or wages, and working part-time seemed to destroy a lot of people's university experience around me. So I consulting and leveraging my existing skill set on computer science and building websites, intranets, online testing systems for people. That was the obvious way to make money. And then, as soon as I'd gotten out of my house and gone to university, then I was, immediately tapping away on building things. So I think there was an element of nature in it. And then I do think there's some, genetic elements around that as well. I have some half siblings that I discovered later in life, and they're all entrepreneurs as well, funnily enough, which I thought was very interesting, even though my family was very much dead against it. The main skills for entrepreneurship are resilience and determination, and those are absolutely things that can be trained. I think the problem is that we don't choose to train them, right? I think that if you find yourself taking knocks in academia or in the workplace harder than perhaps your colleagues, that is something you can train yourself to get better at by leveraging mentors, by testing yourself in softer environments where there's lower consequences, taking on limited responsibility, for example, allowing yourself to fail, etc. And then determination is a lot to do with actually finding your own passion. Many of us are guided by the inbound that we receive. Like you go to a careers fair and someone approaches you and gives you a leaflet. That should not be your job, right? That was them marketing to you. That's not you waving a magic wand and saying, I want to do this job and I'm going to go seek that out. If you do that latter case, then the passion piece and the determination piece is actually quite easy because you're really working on something that you care about deeply. And humans, just by virtue of your ancestors, right? There was an awful lot of people who survived an awful lot to get you to be alive. So all of that knowledge is encapsulated in you. You just have to give it a chance to flourish. So my honest feedback is early on, I didn't get a lot of help. And when I was in an undergrad, and as I mentioned, my family and friends weren't necessarily that enthused about entrepreneurship. The university wanted me to get good grades and get a job working at, probably some kind of Boeing or a defense contractor or something like that. It wasn't until I got to grad school, I got very lucky one day that I ended up at a dinner that one of my friends had organized, and I discovered how mentors can be useful and can actually change your career. So you don't necessarily have to expect the university or your organization to provide you with mentorship, with help early on. It's going to come from all kinds of different places. Public role models, I don't necessarily believe in. I think when you meet your heroes, you'll find they are warts and all, as I've experienced. And maybe I'll give a quick anecdote about this. So one mentor that's been particularly useful to me was a guy called Lauren Walters. So he really changed my life. I met him back in 2007. He was visiting his son at Oxford at the time. He'd come to dinner at our house, invited by a roommate of mine, and took an immediate interest in me. So I explained to him that I had this dream of living in Silicon Valley and wanted to work at a startup there. And he was willing to help. Now, back in 2008, during the financial crisis, no startup wanted to front thousands of dollars for a visa only to wait on the US immigration system. So I'd begun to accept my fate that I was not going to make it to America, despite how determined I was. And Lauren decided to advocate for me all across the country. I got interviews near his house in Silicon Valley. So time marched on, still no offers in the United States. And I'd basically given up. He could hear the weakness in my voice, and he promised my patience would be rewarded. And he pushed and pushed with a friend of his out here in Menlo Park, a lawyer, very powerful lawyer called Frederick Barron. And this guy initially dismissed my resume. Student wouldn't want to spend the time on that guy. Lauren pushed and pushed and pushed. And eventually the guy took a look, forwarded my resume to one of his clients, who ended up being a really well-funded startup in Silicon Valley that applied for a visa for me, got me over in May 2008. And that was the beginning of my career. So one mentor really changed my life. I was lucky to be blessed with it early on, for sure, but it's definitely something I have to work on all the time. Public speaking doesn't come naturally to almost anybody, but it is something that you can work on. Having confidence in your ideas can come from research, from debate, challenging yourself in safer environments, and those kinds of things help you build your confidence over time. In terms of whether or not you're going to take the jump on a big idea and take a risk on your career, that should probably be across a number of different factors. So whether or not you can personally do it, do you have the runway, the capacity you're going to be putting yourself in a bad position? How much time do you have before a bad position emerges? Are you deeply passionate about this subject? Could you work on this for 10 years for just eating on cup noodles, right? If not, think again. And then demand, right? Like, has the organization or have you spent a ton of time talking to the potential customers such that you know deep in your soul that they need this and they need it bad. They need it so badly, they're willing to trust you guys to solve the problem. Outside of just the research that shows how important networks are to humans and their success, it is just, all of my personal experiences that it's been incredibly valuable. Almost all of my time on marketing is spent to the broader public, but almost all of our investments are personal referrals based on my personal network. So even though we have a whole team of people doing this, even though I'm spending my time now doing this, we still find that my personal network is the most fruitful. And that is obviously based on decades of work. So you really must work on this. If you're in your youth now and you've not started to think about this, now is the time. And that doesn't mean inauthenticity. I want to be really clear about that. A lot of people think that networking events about collecting business cards or having someone in a Rolodex. It's not really about that. It's about making sure you maintain connections with people that you like. So when you meet someone that you find impressive and you guys get on and you want to stay in touch, make sure that happens. That's all that networking really is in the modern age. And because then serendipity and opportunity will come, because you're probably posting about your trip to New York on LinkedIn anyway, they're going to see that because you're connected and you've been keeping them updated every quarter about what your plans are. And then they may ask you, or you know to ask them. That is the method of modern networking that drives opportunity for you through luck and serendipity, recency bias, but doesn't require inauthentic behavior. So I don't network with people I don't want to hang out with, but there's plenty of people over the lifespan that we will want to hang out with, and they're all over the world and they're in all walks of life. Immerse yourself in the markets that you're most interested in. So if you want to work in manufacturing and build something there, just spend lots of time with people who are working in manufacturing, building stuff for manufacturing. Find your people. If you can be in an environment where you're around smart people who are working on the same kind of things that you're interested in and challenging you, and you're putting that in front of other customers, then everything else will kind of work out, honestly. But being willing to put yourself out there, put yourself in those situations on a regular basis, make those connections, that's the hard part. I think the product does need to be different, but don't rely on your own imagination. Don't put yourself in a position where you're expecting yourself to generate some innovative idea. Just go and talk to customers. You talk to lots and lots of customers, they're going to articulate the problems that they have, the solutions that they currently have for those problems, why they're terrible, and what they need to resolve that. And in a lot of cases, determination and time will be able to provide you with that product, which will be enough. And again, if you've spoken to a couple of hundred people, you'll probably have 10, 20 people that want to buy it from you right away. They may even be willing to pay you as a consultant. You might have revenue waiting for you right now. Most startups are concerned about this, that someone's going to steal their idea. In reality, you need to be screaming it from the rooftops, because your biggest enemy is people don't care. They really don't care about you or your company at all. They got other stuff going on. And in order to make them care, you're gonna have to do a lot of work, and that starts with you telling them exactly what you do and why it's helpful. If you're cagey about that, I mean, think about it from your own perspective. If you're asking someone a question, they're cagey about it, you lose interest immediately. So don't expect anything else from other people. Yeah, I mean, if you can avoid it, please do that. If you want to build a business, it requires your full-time focus. So the successful examples we have, the Bill Gates, the Mark Zuckerbergs, it cost them their degree. And then you look at how many people have done that and then, failed, it's quite high. The degree lasts forever. If you have to do it, then try and do it along a skill set. So that I had a coding skill set, and so I was doing small coding jobs because they paid more, but only because that meant I could do less hours and then spend more time, doing work, getting good grades, right? That's what your job is. So you really want to think about money and resource generation during university as just a necessity issue, not really a means to building a project that's going to last, unless you're willing to sacrifice your degree for that, which I can't advocate at all, because it too often goes badly. When you're in the summer, or if you're doing an entrepreneurship project as a credit and they say, hey, build something, right, sleeves up, let's get something out the door ASAP, talk to customers, test your ideas, use the no coding tools, build a demo, whatever you can, as fast as you can. But I mean, it's tough. I'm sorry, I wish I had a better answer, but the reality is get your degree, eat cup noodles, and then make money later. Yeah, there's no solution to fear of failure except getting on with it, unfortunately. You just have to accept that culturally, failure isn't something British people like. And that is the hard part of a lot of entrepreneurship mindset stuff. Get comfortable with it. It's going to be okay. So I think the reality is that if you are afraid of failing, look at the history of other entrepreneurs. How many times has Richard Branson failed on business ideas now? How many times have big businesses launched products that have failed? So failure is all around you. What is the most risky thing to do is not to try this stuff, because then you're guaranteed to fail. Right? You're only giving yourself the chance of success if you take the leap. So again, if you've put yourself in a reasonable position to try for a period of months, if you've done the customer research to give yourself the demand and the certainty that the idea is there, then your fear of failure is actually further down the road. It's your fear that you can't supply the product, that you can't outcompete other people that copy you. Well, I believe in you and your ability to get over those things. So just give yourself the chance. There is no solution for courage. I would just say that remember that the opposite of fear is not courage. The opposite of fear is love. So if you love doing something, let yourself do it all the time. Give yourself the chance to do it. Do it part-time. Do it in the evenings. Do it on the weekends. And then you will find that creeping into Monday mornings, you will find it easier to say no to the other things that are distracting you or your current chains. Yeah, I mean, it's a bad time right now, for sure. We had a very good time in 2020 and 2021. This is about as bad as it's been for 10 years. So that's the hard part. The rules, though, and the tactics that you adopt to raise money haven't changed. You just have to have better expectations about valuation and the amount of capital that you might raise. For most people, I think that they think about funding as going to big investors in, the city centre or going down to London or something. And that's not how most companies are actually funded. Most companies are funded by angel investors early on, and that usually is driven by some kind of affinity. Of course, the most common response I receive to that answer is, oh, well, I don't know any rich people, Ash, so your advice is worthless. And of course, there is many, many other ways to find people, even if you don't have independently wealthy people in your network. First of all, you absolutely do. So anyone that you go back through from high school, university, any workplace that you've been in, there will absolutely be independently wealthy people. You can think about it from like the vacations that they were taking, where they live, those kinds of things. And those people will want to hear from you. They will remember how able you were, how talented you were, and their family wants these kinds of opportunities. You're making them look smart. Then you've got local affinity, organizational affinity, and then people who've raised money. Even if you don't know any rich people, there are charities and faith groups in your hometown, wherever you live now as well. All of those people have to raise millions of pounds per year to survive. They are experts at it, and that means they know lots and lots of wealthy people. And this is just a sample of the list. If you want to get the full list of how to do this, the blog post, Google Ash Rust, my name, and where to find angel investors. So the environment is tough, the rules haven't changed, and even if you don't think you know any rich people, tough, we can find them for you. Accelerator programs is certainly a great process for me. They're expensive on equity, that's the main complaint. But if you're going to one that gives you a six-figure check or has a great deal of prestige like Entrepreneur First, then it's worth it. By doing all those kinds of practices as well, you are giving yourself a much better chance with other investors that you meet. You'd be amazed at how many founders that I work with have to do 100 meetings to raise a fundraising round, and all of the yeses come in the last 10 meetings. So it's just a very, very tough journey to get kicked in the teeth 90 times, but that practice is very, very valuable. Those pitch competitions give you an awful lot of that very quickly. They want profitability because, as you mentioned earlier, Lynn, they want sustainability. That's what that really means. And so they do want your business to grow and become a public company over time, but they're not of the same mindset of the last 2 years where it was grow at any cost because there was so much money available. Yeah. Now what they want to assume, an investor is likely to assume that your business may not be able to raise another round of funding. So if they give you this round of funding, is it sustainable through to when you might go public, even if that's a slower path because of the realities of the market? So that's the uncertainty that we have right now. Is this a 2008 style recession or 2001 style recession where it was 5 to 6 quarters of massive drama and then kind of the economy bounces back? Or are we talking about the 1970s or what Japan saw in the 1990s where we have a really long drawn out period of uncertainty and difficult scenarios? That's why you're going to hear from investors, how is this going to be sustainable after this check that I write? That's where that's coming from. You need to go to customers first. So demand is more important than a prototype or an idea. So as an investor, if you come to me with an idea, I don't really care unless you've got the technology and it's really doing well. The prototype better have an amazing demo if you're going to rely on that. Much more interesting to me is not technology searching for a customer, is customers in demand and then the capacity to build for it. So please hear me on this. Talk to customers first. Once you have that demand in hand, investors will be very excited to chat.